This is Colin Stevens with the Better Men Connect podcast. Our goal is to educate and inspire you with authentic and honest conversations that can help you enhance your health, your relationships, and your overall personal growth. Thanks for tuning in. And welcome back to another Better Men Connect podcast. I'm your co-host, Colin Stevens, here with Bruce Stankavage. Good to have you back. Yeah, man.
Absolutely.
We are back at it, and we appreciate you guys tuning in for another episode. This is episode 3, and today we're going to be talking about upgrading your health systems, right? And so one of the reasons that Bruce and I are talking about this is because recently, over the past few years, we've been both trying to figure out new ways to optimize our health. And certainly I'm 41. Bruce, you're
54.
Okay. And so, if you are starting to get into that range of life where your health maybe has been in jeopardy, or you're going to the doctor and you're figuring out some other stuff, or you're just someone who wants to optimize your health so that you can figure out, how you can be the best version of you health-wise. We're going to unpack some of the stuff that we've been learning today. So, Bruce, with that, we're going to talk about it from a physical standpoint, from an emotional standpoint, from a mental standpoint. Like, all of these are important parts of health. So we'll start it off with the physical part. What do you feel like lately has been something that you've been trying to get together or trying to optimize when it comes to your physical health?
Yeah, I think the first thing that comes to mind is just working out more, which actually goes back to a conversation you and I had when we had one of our first Better Men conferences, where you just suggested, hey man, a 15-minute run walk is better than nothing, and consistency is the name of the game. And I remember that was a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, and I just started, even if I could get in 15 minutes, I'm like, I could do anything for 15 minutes. And just that consistency is really when I started to kind of dial it back up to kind of get into better physical shape.
And you're a former athlete.
Right.
So I know one of the struggles was, hey, is this intense enough?
Right. Yeah, I come from the old school where it's like I had to work out, I got to kill myself, where you almost have to puke to really prove like, okay, that was a good enough workout. And, hey, walking for 30 minutes isn't enough. Like, I got to be more. I got to really get my heart rate up to 170 and 180. And like, as I get older, like I can't do that. Like, it just takes too much out of me. So I think that was the beginning of just being more consistent. I'd work out a couple times a week and so on. But when you have to have every workout as a super grind, it's just taxing. It's taxing mentally and it's taxing physically. So that was really a big switch for me when I started to looking at my workouts. Like, hey, something's better than nothing. 15 minutes of a light jog, no time, just do it. Really was the beginning of it.
Yeah, and so it's just consistency.
Yes.
Like, instead of judging ourselves by the intensity of our workout, right, instead of judging ourselves by, hey, did we crush it or did we do this or that, because that becomes at some point a burden. Right. And what we want to be able to do is develop the habit of consistency, right? And so that's why it's like, okay, take the judgment off the table. If you're moving for 15 minutes, you're winning.
Absolutely.
Every day, just do something. Yeah. And then once you've established the habit, then you can optimize it.
Correct.
Then you can dial it up a little bit, and you can maybe throw some strength stuff in there. You can throw some cardio, get more specific, right?
Well, I think, too, for me, what happened was as I started to be more consistent, it's just like I naturally wanted to do more, not out of a prove it to myself or a grind. It just felt like, wow, this feels pretty good, and let me just add 5 minutes or do another exercise here. It was just a kind of amazing thing that happened, and it wasn't based on just sheer willpower, like, oh, I'm going to grind through it. It's once that habit got established, it just made it easier. It just perpetuates, like the law of compounding. The more
yes,
you do it, it just, when you stack winning days, it's amazing, the output. Now it's 18 months later of how so much has changed for me physically.
Yeah, and I feel the same for me. It's probably a little over 2 years for me where I'm working out between 5 and 7 days a week, and it's working out, it's exercise, it's whatever you want to call it that makes you feel good. But the reality is if we can be consistent with it, and then we have to understand why we're doing it, right? If, a lot of times we'll be like, oh, we got to get in shape for the vacation, or we got to get in shape for, for us, it used to be, we got to get in shape for the season, because you get in the off season, you're like, man, I need a break. So for athletes, we understand that, but being consistent, like I want to be healthy just day in and day out. Like I'm getting in shape for me to feel good, so that I can be better for my family instead of irritable. And when I look in the mirror and I've been working on my physique and my exercise has been consistent, I feel better about myself. When I feel better about myself, I treat people better. Right. So that correlation on the why part of physical activity has been really big. How about some other, because there's some other parts. The physical activity is so healthy as well because it gets the oxygen moving in your blood. Right? It gets rid of some of the junk that's within our systems, right? So I know there's another thing that you've been doing in terms of breath work that has been really powerful. You shared some stuff with me. I haven't really adopted it totally, but take me through some of that.
Yeah, I think really what even ramped up my working out even more was when I started taping my mouth shut at night and just started
tape it.
Yes,
like Scotch tape.
No,
duct tape.
I mean, you can do that. I actually bought some different kinds of tape to try it and see what happened, and see what would happen or how it would work and so on. Just stumbled on some things. A friend that I knew was doing some breath work stuff, and he's getting older, and just kind of how it impacts you. And I tried it one night, and I think I lasted about 5 minutes with the tape on my mouth, which forces you to breathe out your nose. And so it was brutal. It was hard. But I just kept trying it. And what I noticed, as a couple of days later, I made it through the night. And what I realized is how I just slept so much better. I mean, and there's all kinds of science. I'm not going to get into the details of it, but it's just so much healthier to breathe out your nose. And so what I
breathe
found,
in and out your nose.
Yes.
Yeah, you don't have a choice.
Correct.
When your mouth is taped shut.
Right. And what I realized is that I slept better and I woke up, I wasn't dehydrated. Because when you breathe out of your mouth so much exclusively at night, like it dehydrates you. And so I would wake up some mornings just dehydrated with a little headache, just not feeling well, dry mouth, and just kind of out of sorts and not. But when I started doing the mouth tape and started studying, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so much happening that biologically and how it's just so much more helpful to breathe out your nose at night, throughout the day actually too. What happened is I woke up more energized. So I did not wake up as lethargic or as tired or with headaches. It's hard to work out. It's hard to really be my best self if I wake up already with a headache or dehydrated or something. So I would say that was really one of the most significant things that I've done. And every night I do it. Every single night. I've not missed a night because honestly I'm a little afraid like what would happen like waking up with the headache or feeling dehydrated.
Yeah.
And everybody that I know that actually has tried it can feel a difference.
Yeah. Okay. Well, now I feel kind of stupid because
I gave you the.
I know you gave me the tape,
stuff.
and I'm like, I don't know. I don't want to die in the middle of the night.
It is
right.
There's
a psychological piece to this, right?
But that was a huge shift for me.
So the breathing part. Go ahead. What's the book that you read?
It's the.
Come on, you said you were going to remember everything. So come on, man. Come on.
The author's James Nestor.
Yeah, and it's Breathe.
Yeah.
That's the one that you sent me was Breathe.
Yes, that's it. But it's like the lost art of an ancient something. Yes.
Okay.
You got it. So you remember.
Yeah, I do. I just, but it's interesting too, because I think this came after we started doing, we started going down this path of learning about cold showers and then going into the cold plunge. This was a few years ago. I know it's a big trend now, but it's also a really healthy trend. It's something that you also have to be moderate with because, there's some people that are like, oh, this is a big deal. I'm just going to go, jump in a freezing cold tub or something for 5 or 10 minutes. And it's the same thing with working out, right? You got to work your way up, allow your body to adjust and adapt. But in the cold showers, in the cold plunges, one of the things that Dr. Andrew Huberman and Susanna Solberg, one of their findings, it's like is the breathing that happens as you're going through that freezing cold time, right? And what your body's trying to do to adapt and adjust. The breathing, controlling the breathing, is what helps your body adjust even more.
Right.
And so that's something that's certainly linked with what you're talking about in terms of breathing.
Absolutely.
But for me, the breathing piece, it translates to when my body feels that way and I feel alarmed, alerted, my nervous system is all out of whack, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like whatever it is, it just might just like me having a hard conversation with Laura,
Yeah.
But if I start breathing and controlling my breathing, I get more settled.
Absolutely.
And so I don't know the science behind it. I just know that, the cold water forces you into that.
Right.
And then if you don't run away from it, and if you don't restrict yourself, you can actually settle and adapt.
Absolutely.
Which is powerful.
Oh, absolutely. I think for me in the cold showers was when it all kind of clicked. As I remember, I used to take the cold showers, and I'd be in there breathing like almost hyperventilating. Because when that cold water hits you, especially in the winter, it's like. My wife one time said, like, "What are you doing in there, making all this noise?" And I was like, I got the cold shower on. I'm trying to deal with it. And then one day I just started to just naturally, I just started to control my breath. And as I noticed I controlled my breath, the resistance to the cold, I mean, it still was cold, still shocks the body. It shocks my body every single day. That doesn't go away. It's a biological survival mechanism response by my body. But as I control my breath and focus on my breath, like that resistance to discomfort starts to go away. It's still cold, but I'm not fighting it. I'm not pushing back on it. I'm not resisting it, and kind of just feeling it, naming it, accepting it, and just breathing through it. And then, really after 30 to 60 seconds, the shock of it's over, and so I do a cold shower every day because I'm like, look, I can do something for 30 or 60 seconds. It's uncomfortable. I don't really ever look forward to it. There's not a day it's like, oh man, I can't wait to go in there and get a cold shower and feel that stress response. But yeah, and for me, it's a psychological. I do it for the psychology of it. Back to what you said, because I think what I've noticed is that response to the cold water that I feel like it comes at me. I feel the same thing in my body when there's a situation with another person, a conflict or whatever, or something else is happening where I can feel that same reaction. I'm like, oh, this is a familiar feeling, because this is kind of how I feel when the water hits me. And if I breathe right through it and I'm okay, I can do the same thing in a personal situation where something happens and I have this response where I want to react, and if I'm like, oh, okay, if I just settle down and breathe into it, I can kind of calm down and then get more present, and separate action from reaction, and then engage in the way that I want to engage.
Yeah, and the cold water is amazing. Like it's wildly healthy for your body in terms of it's a great dopamine release. Releases cold shock proteins. Just so we're clear, I am not a scientist, and I don't really know what that means other than it's good for my body. If you want scientific research on this, Susanna Solberg, Andrew Huberman's big on it. Wim Hof is kind of the one who seemingly, to our generation at least, really got everybody onto this cold water stuff. So if you're interested in researching some of this stuff, I know some of you guys, as soon as we started talking about cold showers, already shut it down. You stopped listening. And, because that is a lot of, when we suggest this
it's amazing.
We suggest it to everybody, to, the leadership groups we talk to, to the men's group that we talk to. I suggested to couples because it's such a mirror of how we handle discomfort, interpersonally. And it's, if we can manage that better within ourselves, we can manage it better with other people.
Absolutely, yeah.
So that's also, not only is that a physical health thing, that's also a mental, like you were talking about, the physiological piece of that.
Right.
Something else that it reminds me, along with working out, has been the the hydration stuff,
Yeah.
right? So before, like, as an athlete, always drinking a lot of water. Always drinking a lot of water. Stayed away from Gatorade because there's a lot of sugar in it, right? Or Powerade or whatever.
Right.
But didn't realize, probably I've been living most of my life dehydrated.
Yeah. Me too. I think
Right.
that's what the breathing and the
Yeah.
they really realized. Like,
Didn't realize that. And so just, going down some rabbit holes and whatnot, I picked up some liquid IVs, right? These packets that have sodium in it, right? And potassium. And I think they have, what I've come to learn is that they also have a bunch of sugar in it too, which makes it taste decently. So you put me on to something, Element, right? Which is only sodium, potassium, and magnesium,
Right.
all those essential vitamins, or essential minerals. But what I didn't realize is that we needed like salt for the water to be absorbed in our bodies. And I used to drink a lot of water, and I remember being like, I'm just peeing all day long.
Right.
And mixing it with sodium allows my body to absorb it, allows the cells to absorb the water. So even the water that I'm drinking, like, I don't feel dehydrated.
Right.
I don't need as much water.
Correct.
Because my body's absorbing it.
Right.
It's just crazy to think of how long I've gone as an athlete, or even training athletes,
Right.
and not understanding that it's not a water issue. It's a water and salt issue.
Correct. Well, I think I'm a little older than you, but like even back in my day, we didn't even drink that much water. Like just
Yeah.
as an athlete. Or
Yeah, if you needed water in practice, you were weak.
Yeah. It's like, oh, it needs water, no water breaks. And so I actually remember playing in summer league basketball games. It's just a random story, but playing in summer league basketball games, finishing the game, and then going with my dad to the 7-Eleven up in Philly and getting a big gulp of Mountain Dew for 49 cents. I'm thinking back on it now, like that's probably the worst thing that I could have had after playing in a hot, 95-degree gym in the middle of July, coming back and getting a 49-cent Mountain Dew and chugging it. Back in the day, it was the fountain drink, and I'd drink half of it before.
And then you fill it back up. Yep.
To make sure I got my money's worth.
And the amount of, and what we're realizing is the amount of sugar that's in those drinks, and then how harmful sugar is to our bodies.
Right.
Like that is it, and it's in everything. In our American diet, it is in every food, certainly all of the processed foods. And what's Dr. James DiNicolatino, whatever. You guys need to go follow him on Instagram. He's a fantastic follow. Very simple. He's a doctor who just believes in getting things done naturally. And so, he's a great follow, but he talks a lot about how sugar is the enemy. Salt is not the enemy. Right. Sugar is the enemy. And so, being able, and I haven't removed sugar from my diet totally, but just being more aware of it and then backing off the things that have higher sugar contents, I think has allowed me to stay within a better fitness level than I would have had I been consuming all that sugar.
Right. Yeah, me too. And I think what I've noticed is as I've cut back on the sugar and cut back on the potato chips, which I grew up on potato chips and would eat a bag of Lay's, but as I've cut back on some of that stuff, I just feel better.
Yeah.
So then I'm like, why have this bag of chips or this snack or this sugar when I know when I'm finished, I'm not going to feel as good.
Yeah.
It's not I'm not using this, stringent willpower. Like I got a Nyberg type sugar again. It's just I don't.
Well, because
feel as good.
Well, it's the oils that are in the potato chips. It's the oils that are in the French fries and in all the fried food that affect the gut so badly. And I didn't know any of this, man. If I had known this, I would not have eaten Burger King before, as a pregame meal. You know what I'm saying? So I'm thinking about this kind of stuff, and I'm like, oh my gosh, we're talking about what happens when we consume something. So you think about potato chips, you think about all the sugary things, you think about how good they taste, and then you feel shitty afterwards.
Right.
So then you think about how that applies also to our relationships and how we take the easier way out, the thing that feels really good in the moment, but it's not good for us long term, and then how that makes things deteriorate. It's all paralleled. Absolutely. All of these things are paralleled. And so when we have some sort of awareness around it, and then we have some intention around it, we try not to eat the stuff that's going to make us feel badly later. Right. Then we feel better just all together.
Right.
And then we show up better
Right.
all together.
Right. Yep.
We're talking about, we just talked about some hydration type stuff. I got to talk about some more liquids. I'm on black coffee now. I've for probably the past 4 or 5 years. I used to have, I didn't realize it, a milkshake every morning with coffee and sugar and cream. Man, if I realized that was 400 or 500 calories, I'm thinking to myself, man, I'm good. I'm not eating till, 1 o'clock in the daytime. I'm intermittent fasting. Man, I was not intermittent fasting, not even close. I had 3 or 4. Yeah. So it was funny though, because it happened when I tore my Achilles. I was eating less because I couldn't be active, so I was laid up for several weeks, and I started gaining some weight. I was like, what the hell's going on?
Right.
Like, I'm not eating as much. Well, I'm having 3 or 4 or 5 cups of coffee a day with all that cream and sugar, man. I might as well have, probably had 1,000 calories in just coffee. Right. So I've dialed back. I know you've been a black coffee guy for a while.
I could never put the cream and the stuff in it. That's what my mom always had, and it was always, as a kid, I hated coffee, and so it just reminds me of that.
Oh.
I'm just straight black coffee.
So I had to make an adjustment there, and it was quite the adjustment. But along with that, one of my morning routines is kombucha. So it's got a bunch of probiotics. The first time that I tasted it, I almost threw up. It was pretty terrible. But what I didn't realize is I wasn't getting enough stuff from my gut. Because there's so much good bacteria that lives in our gut, and if we flush it out with all kinds of nonsense, then we won't have the proper chain of command within our gut to keep us feeling healthy. And so much of our immune system is in our gut. Right. And I didn't realize that until I got sick a few years ago with COVID, and it rocked me, and I was like, hold on, I got to figure out this immune system type thing, because I should not be getting sick like this, right? And so probably for the past couple of years, like I have, half a cup of, 8 ounces of kombucha, 6 ounces of kombucha every morning, just to give my gut. Sometimes I don't give it nutritionally what it needs, so that's a part of me trying to make an adjustment there.
I don't drink that a lot, but intermittently I will. But first time I had it, my brother got sick with leukemia, and I remember that was just one of the things that he would have. And he said, "Hey, try this. This is good for you." And I tried it. I was like, "Oh, that's terrible," But then I started drinking it more, as a tribute to him. I'm like, well, if he does it, and just kind of to honor him, I started drinking it more. So
Heck yeah.
But I know there are benefits to that as well.
Yeah, which is cool. I mean, as you bring in your brother there about how somebody else's health journey can open your eyes to how you can do better in your own,
right.
Or how you can honor somebody else, right, because you care about them so much. Right. And so when he, suggests something like to you, it means something different to you. Right. Maybe you can get past the bad taste, right, and certainly, this is the Better Men Connect podcast. So one of the things that we are always pushing, hopefully, the message of community and connection. And we're not supposed to be on this journey alone, fellas. Like, that's why we're sharing a lot of this stuff. I think there was a long time for me, I thought I was supposed to be just this self-made man that was supposed to figure out everything on my own. And no wonder I was falling on my face, because we weren't meant to operate like that. And we weren't meant to grow and function like that. Right. And so, as you bring your brother into that story, it makes me think of just how important it is to have that connection, and how it can actually help us to grow, help us to improve, or go outside of the box of what we would normally experience. Right.
Well, I think too, even sharing our journey or the working out journey, your suggestion, to me years ago to just do something a little bit every day, it makes it a little bit easier to know someone else is there that has your back. Even when we've done the cold plunges in the ocean, it's one thing to do it by yourself and just how hard that is. But last time, we did it was me, you, and another guy, and like just having 3 people there, it's just the community sense of that, the camaraderie, the shared experience of like, man, that first 30 seconds or minute, like that was rough. I was struggling, life is meant to be shared.
Yeah.
I think that is it's an obvious statement, but maybe not. because I think it's just our best experiences, happen in community. The best memories that I have of my life are not me by myself in my office. You know what I mean? It's shared with my wife or my boys or my family and so on. And so I think what we want to do here is just to intentionally invite people to places where they can connect, and really to disrupt the isolation of individuality, just the people living alone. And I think in today's world, just with the social media and so on, like there's connection, but it's not real connection. It's really a fake connection. And the connection is to the phone, and though it appears it's to the connection to the people on the other end of it. But those people don't know you. Most of those people that like or repost or share anything, they're not the ones that you're going to call in the middle of the night, and so on. So I think that's a huge point in that.
As you brought up, us jumping into the ocean, I remember we were a minute and a half in, and I was like, I'm done. Right. And you were over there like, I think we can push it to 3. Yeah. And I was like, I hate you, Bruce. And so we pushed it to 3. Yeah. And I felt great afterwards. Right. Like I was proud that I had gone further than I wanted to. I would not have done that had I not been with a few of the guys. Right. And the reality is, it's not just regular life is meant to be shared together. The struggle is meant to be shared together. Like the struggle has different meaning when you're with people. You think about, us as athletes, like the struggle of the season, of preseason, of everything is just like, you tell stories about it now, and they're fond memories. When you're in it, it sucks ass. Right. But when the story is done, then it's like, oh, it means more because I shared it with people. Absolutely. And so that struggle, man, what the struggle tends to do to us is make us feel like we should isolate. It makes us feel like we should be compact, right. Like we shouldn't share anything. We're losing, we're failing, something's wrong. Right. So it's important for us to be able to share the struggle, because that's a place of vulnerability too. Right. It's a place of honesty, right? Of like, oh my gosh.
And that's where the connection is.
Yes.
The connection is in the vulnerability, the connection is in the struggles and the brokenness and so on. I think it's not, we don't connect best through our perfection.
Yeah.
The perfections hide us. We hide with those, but it's in those struggles, in that adversity, where we really bond and connect and when we remember things.
Absolutely. So this is something, this health stuff is something that Bruce and I could talk about forever, because it's something that we just want to be as healthy as we can for as long as we can. And so if you're listening now, if there's some other stuff that you guys have done that have helped elevate your health journey or optimize your health, we'd love for you to share it with us. Please connect with us too. We're on Instagram, we're on YouTube, we're on Spotify with this podcast. Better Men Connect. And if you're in Myrtle Beach, fellas, you got to come check us out. We meet the last Tuesday of every month. And, man, I appreciate you sharing. I appreciate you going on this journey with me, because, it does mean something more, when you got somebody to share new things with, or if you're trying to get somebody to tape their mouth shut and they won't listen to you. Right on. It's all part of the journey.
Agreed.
Yeah. All right, so hopefully you check us out. And subscribe, share this with somebody. We'll see you next time.